All right, so welcome into the Kids to Love podcast. I'm excited to have my guest. This time is Lauren Marsh. I want to kind of set the stage of how I guess we really reconnected. I guess I'd forgotten that
Yeah.
because a couple years ago,
Yes.
we'll say that, you
Couple years.
taught at the dance company and I emceed their recital for Julie and Beth for many,
Long
many
time,
years. And so, you were like, you were at the dance company, but I guess the way that this kind of resurfaced is I would see you and Terry, your husband, at different chamber events. You guys were getting awards. We love crowns and trophies around here. So we were getting awards. So I don't know. I just felt like that we kept getting into the same room.
Yes.
And then we connected on social media, and that's when I saw, oh my gosh, we've really got a connection because you're an adoptive mom.
Yes.
Tell us about your adoption journey.
So, the adoption journey started actually, interestingly enough, when my youngest son was only like maybe 8 weeks old. A good friend of ours, we had all gone to get cookies after school, and they were there. And her youngest daughter had this picture of this precious little Chinese girl, and she said, "This is my baby sister," and something just shot through my heart in that moment. It was just, it's something that you can only explain as like God, just put that on my heart like immediately, which was insane because I just had a baby. So I went home and told my husband, I was like, I don't know, there's just something about this story that just touched my heart, and I feel like we're going to do this one day. And he's like, you have lost your marbles. Like we just had our third kid. We're done. We are done. And so 8 years go by, and I'm continuously saying, we're going to adopt. And he's continuously saying, no, we're not. And so one night, I literally just got mad at God in a way, because I'm like, why have you given me this desire?
Right.
But I can't do this by myself. I have to have the buy-in from, the husband of the family. And I was like, God, if this is meant to be, I need you to get him on board, or I need you to take it away from me, because, it's really hard on my heart to know, like, I'm just so passionate about this and I feel so called to do it, but I can't. So literally 1 month later, my husband comes to me and is like, I've been researching adoption, and I think you're right. I think we should do it. Just out of the blue.
Wow.
I had pretty much given up, and it was out of the blue. And again, something that you can only explain that God orchestrated.
Right.
So, of course, the next day I'm like, who can I give money to make sure that this, he doesn't get back on it?
Where's my down payment?
Yes, where can I put, who can I give money to? So, those friends had used Lifeline out of Birmingham, and so I immediately called them, and they were so responsive, and I was able to pay them money immediately, so we could, get it going, and everything said it would take about 2 years, and I was like, absolutely not, I'm getting it done in 1 year. I just was determined, and so I started looking at files, and you go through this painstaking process of talking about medical issues and things like that. And one of the things when we were looking through the medical issues, I was like, I'm really scared of seizures. I'm scared of epilepsy. I don't know how well I would handle that. Again, God.
God's got such a sense of humor.
Yeah, and that's like a totally separate story, but just kind of, keep that in mind as we continue. But I found this file of this little girl, and she's just walking around in this video, and she's so cute. And again, that thing struck in my heart. And I was like, this is our daughter. And interestingly enough, another family had her file, and, they would put it on hold. So her file was on hold, and I was just, like, heartbroken, because I'm like, there's no way that they're not going to say yes, because she's just so cute. And, so I just prayed again. I was like, God, if this is meant to be, I feel like this is my daughter. If this is meant to be, I know you'll work it out. And again, 1 week later, I get the call that this family had chosen not to move forward, and that I could put her file on hold so that I could, kind of do my due diligence. And I was like, wow, it still gives me chills to even think about. And so I just knew. I knew that was our daughter, and it worked itself out. And so the next funny thing is I said, I want to get the medical expedite to go get her sooner. because again, I was just super determined, and I'm not patient at all. And they're like, nobody ever gets the medical expedite. I'm like, I don't care. I want you to try anyways.
Right.
I got the medical expedite. And when we traveled, the guy that had, done all the paperwork for it was like, they never approved this. I was like, well, don't tell me never.
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to figure it out.
Should I have waited more than 8
Yes,
years?
I waited a long time.
Don't push this.
Yeah, don't doubt.
Right.
Don't doubt it. So, it's just a beautiful story from start to finish. And the last part about it that is so amazing is we traveled in August of 2019 because I was able to get that medical expedite, and then of course COVID hit, and at the end of the year they cut off travel to China for that purpose.
And
so
we had no idea.
we had no idea. We had no idea,
my
but it's like
gosh.
God put that urgency on my heart
Yeah.
to make sure
That you got her home.
that I would get her home, and I did. And so if it had been any later, she would still be there today.
Yeah.
And then so back to the epilepsy thing after, we're at the hotel and she starts doing this funny little thing, and I send a video to the doctor. They're like, oh, it's probably just a spasm. Well, we get home and they get bigger and bigger, and it's definitely epilepsy. So, and you know what? I've handled it just fine, The world didn't stop turning, and I was a big girl about it. So, and she's had quite the journey with that too, but just a blessing from start to finish, and, something that you can only say was divinely orchestrated from start to finish. And she is, she has her daddy wrapped around her little finger,
That's
and
right.
she is the princess of the house.
Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows it. So,
And how old is she now?
she's 9.
Oh,
And so we're right at almost 7 years ago that we
Wow.
traveled to get her. And my oldest daughter and myself traveled, and we went to the other side of the world and brought her home. So it was an amazing experience.
So when I knew that you had adopted, I thought, oh my gosh, because I don't know. I feel like those of us in this world, whether it's domestic or international or, family that you take or multi-generation, I mean, to open your heart and your home to a child. And I think what I love so much that you consistently, when you share your story, is it truly was a calling.
Yes.
And so when you and I grabbed coffee that morning and you were telling me this, I don't know, I just had such a kindred spirit
Yes.
connection with you because I just feel like you get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we're over here as an organization who feels, knows that we're called to be a voice for children and to advocate for kids, especially in our community. And the children we work with are, domestic,
Yes.
Alabama, Tennessee. But no child deserves to be an orphan.
No.
And that's the reality of what we're dealing with. And so when I shared with you about what we were doing, and especially how we've privatized foster care
Right.
and, recruiting families, and how our organization, we don't take any of the funding, which means we have to provide the funding.
Right.
And you said, I had no idea you guys were doing that. I mean,
I had no idea.
It's a whole different way to do it. That there is no playbook. We're writing the playbook
Right.
as we go. But yeah, it was.
Which
And-
I love that spirit too of tell me I can't do it. Like tell me I can't.
That'd be
do
me,
it.
Lauren, yeah.
Because I love that, and that is a quality that I always just have so much admiration for. So that conversation really touched my heart too, because I'm like, man, I love a person that says I'm doing it. I'm gonna figure it out.
Every day.
Yes.
Every day. And
Yes.
so when I was sharing with Lauren and, just really the scope of what we were doing and how we were serving, and I was sharing with you how one of the biggest needs that we've seen, I'd say in the past 2 years, are teen moms
Yes.
and teen babies. And so when we talk about privatized foster care, that means that judges are calling us, placing children with us directly. And I had a judge, I guess it's been 2 years or so now, maybe a little longer, that said, Leah, I've got a teen mom and a baby, and the only reason why this kid is in custody is because she's poor and she doesn't have a place to go. I know that if I place her somewhere else, that the chance of her being separated from that child will be great.
Right.
And he said, I really want to give her a chance to be a mom. I think in the right environment, she could be. So we brought her in and placed her with one of our foster families. And so I was just sharing that as an example. Our girls at the cottages, we've had several single moms there that we've helped with jobs and training, and they've, transitioned on to independence. And then you're like, that's an interesting part. So there was like a whole nother layer that we connected on that I had no idea was part of your journey.
Yes. So that again touched my heart because, and when you said specifically, they would possibly have had to separate the mother and child, that would be absolutely heartbreaking, especially for a mother that's in that situation, has made the decision, I'm going to take care of this child, to separate that would be, horrible. So, but I was able to share with Lee, and I'm at a place where I'm super comfortable with talking about it. I was 17 years old when my oldest daughter was born. It was 1 month before I graduated from high school, and I was hugely blessed by a family that supported me. After the initial shock, which any parent, any family would have that initial shock, but they were very supportive. The school system was very supportive in helping me with, bringing home my schoolwork so that I could stay home and
Graduate on time.
Yes. Which was huge for me.
Yes.
I didn't want to be behind on that. And so I had just so many people rally around me and support me. And I thought, in that moment when you shared that story, had I not had that support system, where would I have been? And, she's a huge blessing to us now. She works with us. And, that story blossomed because I had so many people around me that loved me through it, that accepted me through it, that supported me through it. And it's a huge part of my life and a huge part of my journey. So that was just another amazing connection to be able to find between the two of us.
So needless to say, there were several connections, and then that's when I ask you, because before I approach anyone really, I'm very. Let me back up. Everybody wants to know what our secret sauce is. What's your secret sauce?
Right.
And I'm gonna be honest. Prayer is my secret sauce, and
100%.
I know this, and I've had to learn this lesson the hard way because. People have told me, some people have said, Lee, I really don't care about those kids, which just is a dagger to my heart because, you're talking about me. But anyway, but it has changed my thinking and my approach. And so now what I do is I'm prayerful about who I approach, connect with, because what I want to do is I want to align with people who have a heart for our kids and our mission.
Yes.
And so when I'm fair warning, if God puts somebody on my heart, I'm coming after you.
Yes.
And if you do not reply, that's between you and him.
That's right.
I'm out. But I just felt like with our connection through all these other things and just seeing and so, they have Ridgeline Construction, and I just thought, gosh, what a beautiful way of community helping community.
Yes.
If, as you guys are building, preparing, making homes better, prettier, or from scratch, invested in the homes that we're trying to create here with foster care and families.
Right. And that was the perfect partnership. And the interesting thing is as a business owner, you're constantly being asked by different organizations. And, the hard part is really kind of dialing into what's important to us, what aligns with our values, what's on our hearts. So when you approached me about, doing a partnership, I was like, this is perfect because this is something that I can say, this is our mission.
Yeah.
This is our policy, and this is what we are wanting to give back to our community. And, it just aligned on so many fronts, and just an awesome opportunity for us to partner. And the interesting thing, too, other connections I pulled into Kids to Love. The very first office that Ridgeline Construction was in is literally across the street. And so when we pulled in, I was like, oh my gosh, there's our old office.
Yes.
And then another connection, which is I think also too probably why we were connected like on social media was, at one point when y'all were looking for a home and had office supplies and furniture. We had warehouse space,
Yes,
and so we
and
were
you guys
able
were
to.
so gracious to let us
Yes.
utilize that.
And so that was just another connection, and like time had passed, so I hadn't thought much about it
Right.
over time, but it was just to reach out and figure all these things out. Is like it's definitely again another divinely guided interaction. So that was really cool.
So talk a little bit about the partnership, because what I love is I kind of like pitched this to Lauren, and Lauren said, let me take it back to my team.
Yeah.
And then you came back with, because at that point, I could give you 20 ideas of what I
Right.
think, but what I love that you said that I think is so critical is it's what aligns with your company, your values, your policy, because I wanted to pitch the idea and the vision of
Right.
it, and then you caught
Yeah.
you caught the ball and you kept running with it. And
Yes.
so talk a little bit about what you and your team came up with and what Ridgeline is able to do to support
Yes.
our kids and families.
So we're really excited for each roof that we sell, full roof replacement. We are going to give $200 to Kids to Love for each roof replacement, and we kind of put a time horizon on it for 6 months so that we can kind of assess and see, is this working the way that we want it to? Is it offering the help that we want it to offer? So we're really excited about that partnership and what our team was able to come up with in regards to that. And on top of that, we feel like it's a great opportunity to share your mission and your story with our clients as well, just to expand that net of people who, maybe they've heard of Kids to Love, but they don't know exactly what y'all
Right.
do. So just, to have the opportunity to open the conversation is just another way that I think is super helpful to any organization. So I'm excited about both aspects of that.
I love that because
Yeah.
we're constantly recruiting for foster families, and we know not everybody, and adoptive families,
Right.
and we know that not everybody is going to have that calling, but there's something that everybody can do to support. And these are our kids,
Yes.
and it's got to be. We take that ownership of it, and so we're constantly trying to challenge others in the community to see.
Yes.
No, that government shouldn't be raising children. Families
Right.
should be raising
Yes.
children. So let's do this. Let's do this well. Earlier this week, we shared the story of one of our young ladies that she was at the farm, and then because we've got Davidson Farms, then we have the Child Placing Agency, which allows us to have licensed foster homes, and then so foster care and adoption. And so very rarely do organizations have all of that under one
Right.
roof.
Yeah.
But it really, for us, the reason why we do it is we want to be that entire ecosystem, but also
Yes.
one-stop shopping for,
Right.
and I don't mean that to shop for a child, so please don't
Yeah.
think that way. But case in point, so Brookley came to Davidson Farms, and there was a lot of work that she needed to do. And so, our trauma therapist wrapped around her, our case management team, and Brookley put in a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And then she was ready to be, to try adoption
Yeah.
again. And so then we were able to place her with one of our families. And so she moved from the group home into a foster care placement. And then that changed to a pre-adoptive placement.
Right.
And then this past Monday in Judge Barger's courtroom became a permanency plan. And so she was
Amazing.
adopted. And so, like, to me, everybody, when they say, well, I really don't understand. And I'm like, I don't say this to make Brookley the poster child, but I'm like, this is a child that we have invested into her. We have been, in a lot of ways, the only theme of stability in
Right.
her life for the majority of her life.
Yes.
And, so at the courtroom on Monday, she just came up and hugged me, and she was like, Miss Lee, thank you.
Yes.
And I told her, I said, you know that we are always your net,
Yes.
and you always have a place.
Right.
And she just smiled and nodded because, we are so excited for this family
Right.
to adopt. But I mean, to, as you know, take a child in that's, and especially in your situation, different culture, all of that. I
Yes.
mean, the journey isn't over when they're adopted.
No.
In a lot of ways, that's when the real work starts with
Right.
the child and the family.
That is so true, and I think that sharing that story to show like what a family can do for a child is, paramount. And what I've seen with my daughter in particular, and what I think of is, if she was still, in the system, her health. I've talked about her epilepsy. We've done so many things to try to get over that. Would that have happened? No, her quality of life would never have been the same. And when you can see what it does in a child's life, and the also interesting thing is as an adoptive mom, I don't view her any differently than my biological children. I joke all the time that I forget that I did not birth her, because that is how connected she is in our family. I forget that she does have a mom out there somewhere. And a dad out there somewhere that we don't know. But God's called us to be her mom and dad and step in where they couldn't. And any family that takes that role on is, to me, just a huge blessing, and it's a huge blessing to them as well. And when people tell me all the time, they're like, wow, you're such a blessing to her. I'm like, no, she's a blessing to us. Yeah. She really is, because you just can't even explain. You can't explain what it does to your heart to see that. And when you say one-stop shop, what I love really is it's not a one-stop shop. What you're really doing is you're seeing needs and you're filling those needs. Yeah. And you're not waiting for somebody else to do it.
Exactly.
And that's what I love about it, because if we wait around for somebody else to do it, we'll be waiting forever.
That's right.
So, to take that initiative and say, I see a need here, and I'm not waiting to fill that need, because these kids don't have the time. They need that need filled right now, because time is ticking. That's the one thing we can't stop is the clock. So you have to be willing to do what you can, when you can, where you can. So I love that.
Well, and as a mom, we learn that childhood is just such a brief season.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody says that. Oh my gosh, it's going to go by so fast.
It's true.
It does. It's true. And so to me, I think about that going by so fast for kids that don't have a stable home and permanency. Like, they're missing out on their childhood if we don't get them into a forever family sooner than later.
Yes, and they'll never get that back.
Right.
And what it's done for our whole family, even our boys as well, is we also have 2 boys. So we have 2 girls, 2 boys. But it's just created a compassion in them, and they'll come home and make comments sometimes like, so-and-so, I see that they have problems, or they're, they don't have a good family life or whatever. They think about it a little differently, I think, than they would, on the surface of somebody that hasn't seen, a child that's had to change. And, the language barrier was definitely a challenge for us. It's weird to have to take your phone and Google Translate to talk to your own kid, But I think that no matter what, in that situation where there's a language barrier or what have you, you're still having to translate in one way or the other, whether it's, emotions or it's, just that they haven't had somebody care for them and love them, or the stability. There's still a translation there, whether or not you're aware of it. So
So beautiful. Lauren, thank you so much for sharing your story with us
for having
and
me,
your heart. I think
thank
know
you.
now why she and I connected.
Yes.
Like, just over a cup of coffee. Stand by, we might just change the world.
Yes,
And we appreciate you and Terry and what you guys are doing through Ridgeline to support our kids and our families.
Yes.
So plug of support those who support us and our kids. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.